How's it going beyond the benches? It's your man JT coming at you here with another video on a Friday here to go ahead and talk about, just give a little bit of an update and a recap of everything that's been going on as we enter the early part of this offseason. As you know, new vice president and head football guy Chris Greer, with guys like Reggie McKenzie and Marvin Allen in the front office now. You know, a new head coach, Brian Flores, and his staff, they prepare to take the Dolphins through this kind of rebuilding process. And you know, this first wave of free agency, some crazy money's been going out there. But as far as the Dolphins, the biggest thing that's been going on for the past 3 days has really been centered around their quarterback position. Is everybody still kind of has the understanding, their belief that at some point this offseason, while it hasn't happened yet, quarterback Ryan Tannehill will make his way out of Miami, whether that's through, you know, being released or being traded or something like that, that he's not going to be here next year, that they're ready to just completely move on from that situation. And, you know, maybe there's still a small percentage chance that they end up sticking with him for one more year and draft somebody behind him, but that really doesn't seem likely considering his price tag and just everything else. And at this point, there's been so much talks that I don't really see that happening. So, you know, but the problem is the Dolphins have not really seemed to find any sort of replacement yet at the quarterback position. Tyrod Taylor was someone that, you know, you heard connected to them, and he ends up going to the Chargers. Then Teddy Bridgewater was a big one, ended up taking a free agency visit with the Miami Dolphins, and Teddy kind of really surprised me, and I'll get to him, eventually ending up deciding to just stick with the Saints. But, you know, because the early part of the offseason really seemed to match all of the rumors, which was that, you know, we were going to go through a complete rebuild, shut it down, probably not be very good next year. Maybe even the word tanking, was a word that got thrown out there a lot. And so the early part of the offseason really seemed like that. You lost Danny Amendola, you lost Cameron Wake, you lost Juwan James. You know, you let these guys go. Some of them you'll get compensatory picks back for losing. And really the players you were signing back were, you know, 3 players who may or may not even make the roster other than Dwayne Allen, who is a blocking tight end and only helps you in a little bit. So there really wasn't a huge sense of urgency and really any sign of building a winner, at least for 2019. So to go sign Teddy Bridgewater, to me, kind of was confusing because I actually think he's a pretty good quarterback, and he's someone who could, you know, eventually become a long-term starter in the NFL. He's only 26 years old. He's been to the playoffs. He's done some things. He's not one of these guys that you know what he is. You know he's not going anywhere. He does have a little bit of potential still. I think he probably really, no matter what, is really in the Tannehill group. So it just didn't make sense to get somebody so similar in that situation, you know, to get somebody who's not really good, you know, that good, but also not really bad, and give him a roster that's not nearly good enough to compete. You know what I mean? So it really kind of puzzled me when we were interested in him. The fact that he goes to the Saints, though, I mean, listen, he took, you know, not that much more money to go be in a 1-year deal as opposed to a 2-year deal, which is what the Dolphins supposedly offered him, to go be a backup somewhere else than to be the starter for the Miami Dolphins. So that should really tell you everything you need to know about being Miami's situation right now and potentially being their quarterback. Because I think the biggest problem is a lot of quarterbacks are going to feel like the Dolphins will always have one eye on replacing them. So if I'm Tyrod Taylor or whoever and I sign with the Miami Dolphins, are they always going to kind of have that eye towards the 2020 draft, which we've heard a lot of rumors about, and all those quarterbacks and what they have to offer, such as Jake Fromm and Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert, you know, or even maybe someone this year with Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma and Dwayne Haskins. You know, if I go to Miami, are they just going to instantly try to replace me? I think that's probably the biggest fear in a lot of this. But the big question is, now that the Dolphins have missed out on these pretty respectable free agent quarterbacks, you know, Nick Foles is going to Jacksonville, what do they do now? What is the plan of action? Is it to aim at 2020 for the quarterback position? Is it to go all in this year and try and find your guy? To me, what I would do is I would sign somebody cheap. You can't just go into the season with David Fales and Luke Falk because, you know, the quarterback position at that point would be so bad, the locker room is just going to give up. They're not going to try 100% because why would they? Why would you put your body on the line and kill yourself and go 110% when from the get-go you really know you have no chance this season. Even if you are a prideful player and you think you're giving it your all, a lot of times subconsciously, if you know you ain't got a chance, you're just not going to go that extra mile. And that's a year of development that the Miami Dolphins should really use for young players. That and the quarterback position may be so bad you can't even evaluate your roster properly. You need someone good enough to start, good enough to get the ball to your running backs and wide receivers. So I would sign somebody cheap like a Josh McCown, a Josh Johnson, somewhere along Mark Sanchez, I don't care. Somebody who's played, someone who's been a starting quarterback before, and sign him for cheap. Then I would try to go trade up for Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State. I think Kyler Murray's way out of your reach. If he doesn't go number 1 overall, he's going probably second if the Raiders trade up. So I think Kyler Murray's out of your reach. I would get a cheap quarterback, try to trade up for Dwayne Haskins. If you can't get a deal done, then you roll with the cheap quarterback for a year. Try to build up your offensive and your defensive line this year and build up other parts of the roster, and then come back in 2020 and get a quarterback then. And yeah, it probably means you're not great next year. I mean, a Josh Johnson or Mark Sanchez led team, you don't need me to tell you, would not be a very good team. But that's what I would do. I would get the cheap quarterback. I wouldn't go after, Fitzpatrick or any of these guys or keep Tannehill. I'd get someone cheaper that if I don't get a quarterback in this draft, they're going to be bad enough to get me one next year. So let me know what you guys think. Tough situation, but I think, honestly, that's the best situation for the Miami Dolphins at this point. But I will be coming at you with more videos on mock draft coming soon, and, of course, any breaking Dolphins news. See you then.